Two cars on the surface, very different, but they do have similarities. I'll start with the differences. 2 doors, 4 doors, 2 seats, 4 seats, 2 litre engine, 1 litre engine, 181 brake horsepower, 72, 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, 14.9. Okay, they do seem quite different, but they do have a lot in common. They both have a petrol engine without a turbo, but with a manual gearbox. And they both have a roof that you can retract to more or less of an extent. And they're both great fun on country roads. The question is though, if I was to drive them in the same manner on the same route, how would they differ for fuel economy? Well, let's find out. I'm starting in the Aygo Cross with its 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine. I'm going to drive both cars over the exact same routes. 3 routes in total, 1 in town, 1 on dual carriageways at 70 miles per hour and 1 on country roads. Then I'll compare the economy. But today, because both cars are at home, I can actually include a cold start on this test. I haven't started the car yet, either of them. You may be thinking, how did I film the intro? How did I move the cars around to get them both in shot? Well, I haven't filmed the intro yet. I'm planning to do that after I've done the economy test because I don't want to waste this cold start. So ignition is on, maps are set, ready to go. Climate control is set to 20 degrees with the air conditioning on. This car does not have heated seats. I've reset the trip computer. What I'm going to do is start the engine and do the route. The route is 16.3 miles long. There's going to be no warm-up phase. I'm not going to warm up the other car either. I'm going to start the engine and go. So, clutch down, ready? There we go. And I can't retake that because I only get 1 cold start. So if I fluff my words, that's it. That's going to have to stay in the edit. Of course, this is not a scientific test. I don't have a lab, so I can't do a scientific test. But really, I think what's more important is the real world test, which is what this is, real world economy on these roads. Of course, there's going to be a slight variance between the tests, but I've deliberately picked a time when kids are at school. So it's not going to be during the rush hour. Hopefully traffic will be similar when I'm driving both cars. Also, it's one of those cold days that is set to be cold pretty much all day, so the temperature difference shouldn't be too great either. I'm not going to be specially economical for these tests, neither am I going to be heavy-footed. I'm just going to drive how I normally drive. I will have to change up gears later in this car than I do in my MX-5, but that's just how the car is. It has less torque, so you do have to rev it a bit more to get going at a similar rate. I'm leaving the stop-start system switched on. I'm letting the computer do what it wants to do. They both seem to work fairly well on both these cars. This one is particularly smooth when the engine switches off. You don't feel a vibration, and when it switches on, you don't either, but you do hear it cough into life. So it doesn't affect refinement in terms of how it feels, but it does in terms of the sound. So when these lights go green, there we go, you hear it cough into life, and then I'm ready to go. 46.7 miles per gallon so far, that's promising. The heater has started to kick in to my delight because my fingers and toes are cold. It's 6 degrees outside, and what I normally do before I set the cameras up on a cold day is I'll drive the car around the block to get the engine warm, get the heater working, so I don't have to sit in the cold. But because I didn't want to waste the cold start, today I did it in the cold. It's quite hard to operate the GoPro touchscreens when your fingers are cold. It doesn't respond very well. So here we are, some 20 zone now. Not much of that on this route, but then there's not many 20 zones in Colchester, fortunately. There's a few dotted around, but they make up a small proportion of the urban roads. The urban routes will include 20, 30 and 40 mile per hour roads, but mostly it will be 30. Cruise control, yep, good, that works at 20, so I don't have to try and keep it at this speed limit. It's quite hard to stay at 20, I find. About halfway through the urban drive now, got 54.6 miles per gallon. Engine's just turned off for the stop start. And I have to say, I'm quite enjoying this drive. Traffic's not too bad. Seats are comfortable. Suspension's doing a good job. And I'm using less fuel than usual. Earlier on in the urban drive, I had 56 miles per gallon. Now I've got 53.8, and that's because I've included some of the slowest parts of town to make it a proper urban test. Although the traffic's not as bad as it can be, I am going slow and stopping and starting quite a bit. So that's an impressive number. 53.7 now. I'm about to get on some more flowing roads, so I expect that'll probably go up. Just finished the urban drive. It took 51 minutes. I did 16 miles in the end. It wasn't exactly as the map stated, and I got 56.8 miles per gallon. That's impressive. I don't think my 2-litre Mazda is going to match that, although it'll be interesting to see how close it gets. Okay, I've just set the trip computer and the maps are set, going straight on to a dual carriageway. 70 miles per hour. I think the first little bit will be 50 because of roadworks, but that's only going to be for a matter of seconds, and then it's going to be 70 all the way, and I'm going to try and do 70 for as much as I can. Fortunately, there was no 50. It's straight on to national speed limit. The 50 is behind me. I've joined the road after the roadworks. So top gear, and let's try and stay at 70 as much as I possibly can. At the moment I'm doing 55 miles per gallon. Turn the cruise control on, set it to 70. It will follow the car in front. When I've got an opportunity, I'll move over to go past this car because I am only doing 55 miles an hour, but there are cars passing me at the moment. At the moment it's 44.3 miles to the gallon. Not a bad start considering I've just accelerated up to this speed. 60 miles per hour now. 65. And nearly there. 70, just about. I can't remember how long this route is. I think it's about 23 miles. I'll make a note on screen of the exact distance. Should be a similar distance to the country road route I'm going to do, but already 58.9 miles per gallon, and I've only really just started. Got quite a few miles left to do. It says 11 there, but that isn't the entire route. That's just to my next waypoint. I'm pretty much going down this road and back up it again, and then straight onto some country roads. Been doing 70 most of the time, doing 64 at the moment because the queue of cars is a bit slower as we're passing this lorry. 59.2 miles per gallon. Oh, I think my 2 litres in trouble. It's not going to be getting this economy. Won't be half it though, to be fair. What impresses me about this car on these roads is just how quiet it is. You can't compare it to a Mercedes E-Class, but it does compare to cars that are a class above or two, like a VW Golf. And also these driving assistance systems, well, they do work well. This adaptive cruise control is making me feel very safe behind this car, and the steering system works quite well as well. Often these steering systems can bounce you from line to line, but this is actually keeping me more or less centered in my lane. I can just rest my arms on the steering wheel and watch and intervene if I need to, but I don't really need to intervene, it's just doing it for me. Just over halfway through the dual carriageway route now. I'm leaving to turn around and go back, and I've done 63.7 miles per gallon. Doing 70 miles an hour most of the way. I was able to do that, I would say 85% of the time, which isn't bad. It's rare that you can do it all the time. That is more than usual actually. Usually I have to drive more slowly on this road because it's busier. Coming to the end of the 70 mile an hour dual carriageway route now. Leaving here. I did the same road in both directions, so if there's wind it's going to even itself out. And I've got 63 miles to the gallon. I've got somewhere to pull over. Ooh, look at that wall. Someone didn't slow down after leaving this road, went straight into their driveway, I think. I've got somewhere to pull over up here, and I'll do the economy based on where I stop. Just on this road on the left. I'll go in there, I'll stop the engine and see exactly what economy I got and the distance. Oops, need to move that camera, it's just touching the wheel. The distance and the time. I'll pull up here behind this black car and have a look. So, engine off, and it says 23.2 miles, 25 minutes, and 63.1 miles per gallon. Yep, my Mazda's not going to be doing that. So, country road map set up. Trip computer has been reset. Let's check that. Yep, 0 miles per gallon, so that's reset. Engine on. I'm going to have to turn around. Won't go into reverse, just lift the clutch, push it back down. There we go, went that time. Turn around and get on the country roads. I'll have to turn around in both cars. I'm doing exactly the same routes in both cars. When the speed limit is 60 as it is now, I am going to be making the most of it. So I'm not going to be driving slowly. I am going to be safe though. I'll only do 60 if it's safe to do so. And there will be some 30s and 40s and 50s in there as well, as is the case across country. You don't get 60 all the way. You're struggling up that hill a little bit in third gear. So slowing down for this bend now. A lot of this is uphill, or this bit anyway, not the whole route, but the beginning bit is. So economy is going to suffer. 43.2 already, that's in third gear. Let's go up to fourth gear. Still pulling slowly into fifth gear at 50 miles an hour. 55. This hill is fairly steep. It's not like a Welsh hill, but if you cycle up it, you get knackered. And this is about as fast as I feel safe at the moment, because there's quite a few bends. Doing 55 miles an hour, slowing down now for this bend. 39.4 miles per gallon. I think that will go up though when I get onto the flat road, and as I've gone uphill, I'm probably going to go back downhill soon. This is a nice safe bit of road to do 60 on. In fact, so safe I'll set the cruise control until the next bend at least anyway. This cruise control doesn't slow down for bends, so I have to do that myself. I think there are systems out there that do that, but I've not tried one yet. Still going uphill. It's been a while since I cycled up this. I do remember it being exhausting, and no wonder, because I've been driving between 50 and 60 miles an hour for a little while now, and I'm still going uphill. A couple of minutes, I think, on a bike takes ages. And as usual on these roads, I will be catching traffic. So at the moment I'm doing 40, and that's because there is a lorry up there and a small queue of cars behind that lorry. This car is actually a lot of fun on these roads, although I'm not experiencing that at the moment because I'm trying to drive very sensibly. I'm not trying to be economical, but neither do I want to drive with a heavy foot and use maximum revs to get the maximum performance from the engine. I'm driving like I would do on a driving test. And you may be thinking, oh, you failed your driving test because you haven't got your hands at 10 to 2, or you're not checking your mirrors every 3 seconds or whatever. But there's a lot of myths about the driving test that aren't true. In fact, I've done a video all about that, driving test myths. If you're interested, I'll leave a link to it on screen. Not had much traffic on this road, so I've been doing 60 throughout a lot of it, and I'm at 56.5 miles per gallon, slowing down to a 30 now. I've nearly finished the country road route. Only about 3 or 4 miles left. Now, I know some people will be commenting saying that I'm relying on the trip computer's economy and that it's not accurate. And that's true, it's not entirely accurate, but it is usually within 2 or 3 miles per gallon. What isn't accurate is filling up the tank with fuel, using 4 or 5 litres for an economy test, and then filling it up again, because the click off on the fuel pump isn't accurate. It doesn't do exactly the same fuel each time. When you're only using, say, 5 litres, let's say it has a ½ litre difference between clicking off. Well, ½ litre, that's a lot. That's going to be less accurate than this trip computer. And I've done it myself. I've done economy tests myself where I filled up the car, done a route for half an hour or an hour, filled up again, and I didn't actually get that much fuel in the car. And as a result, it wasn't an accurate test. I was better off relying with the trip computer on the car. Okay, I'm back. Going to park up in the same space that I started in, and I'll see what the economy was. The country road pretty much led me all the way back to the start, because I do live quite near a country road. And when I turn the engine off, I'll tell you the economy. So there, and it says 57.6, but when I turn the engine off it says 57.6. 34 minutes and 17.6 miles. Sometimes when I turn the engine off, the economy here seems to be a little bit different. I'm not quite sure why, but only like 0.1 out. Still, very impressive, 57.6. My 2-litre Mazda certainly has its work cut out for it. So, now for the Mazda on urban roads. The maps are ready, climate control is set to 22, air conditioning on. I want to keep it the same for both cars. Heated seats are off, and I've reset the trip computer. This car has a bit of an advantage though, because it's 10 degrees now. When I started the Aygo, it was 6 degrees. So it's 4 degrees advantage, 4 degrees warmer. Engine on and I'll get going. There we go, cold start. And we're off. I really noticed the difference getting into this MX-5 after the Aygo. Firstly, completely different driving position. This is a much more sporty position. I'm sitting lower down. I almost feel like I'm sitting on the floor after driving the Aygo, and everything's heavier. Gas, brake, clutch, the gear stick, there's a real notch to it, although it does loosen up when it gets warmer, and the steering is heavier as well. That doesn't mean it's worse. It's not worse, it's different. The Aygo is easier to drive, whereas this is more sporty. You feel more involved, like you have to do a bit more work to get where you're going. Also, this likes higher gears. At 30 miles an hour in the Aygo, I'm in 4th gear, but in this car, it asks for 6th gear. I'm going to use stop start. I don't know if, yeah, it's kicking in. Now I've put it into neutral. I'm going to leave that on. It seems to work quite well. In this car, it's not as smooth as the Aygo when the engine turns on. The car does, yeah, it does shake a little bit. You probably saw that on camera. It's totally smooth in the Aygo. But you still hear them. Both of them make a similar sound, sort of the starter motor going as it kicks into life. Right, 28.1 miles to the gallon. Oh, this is not looking good, Mazda. I think I'll be using a bit more fuel. I'm also noticing the difference in power as well. There's a lot more power available when I flex my right foot. A small press of the gas pedal and the car picks up and accelerates, whereas in the Aygo, I have to press the pedal quite a lot harder. I'm not driving any faster, to be fair. I'm doing the same speed, but I just don't have to press the gas as hard to do the same speed in this car. The engine has more power. Bit of a disadvantage for the Mazda because this traffic wasn't here when I was driving the Aygo, although it only seems to be around about a minute's worth of stop and go traffic up to the roundabout. It's not like I've been here for 5-10 minutes. When it comes to gear choice, I am trusting the car's recommendations, not when I'm slowing down, not for general acceleration and driving, but when I'm cruising at a consistent speed. If it recommends a higher gear or a lower gear, I will take its advice. Generally speaking, it wants me in 6th gear at 30 miles an hour, although it doesn't at the moment, that's unusual, and 4th gear at 20 miles an hour, which seems very high, but it does handle it fine, and I was doing the same thing in the Aygo, except the Aygo doesn't tell you what gear to be in, it just tells you when to go up. I'm not paying any attention when I'm approaching a junction for downshifts. No, I'm not using it to know when to change gear when I'm speeding up and slowing down. I'm using it for cruising speeds to know what's the best economical gear when I'm cruising at a certain speed. Last time I was here in the Aygo, I was in the low 50s, 50 something to the gallon. Now I've got the high 30s, 37.5 miles to the gallon. I don't think this car is going to do much better than that round town, but we'll find out. There's still some driving to do. As for which car I prefer to drive, well, that depends on the situation. Doing an eco test like this, I'm not really using the merits of this car. I'm not driving it how it's intended to be driven. So I'm noticing that compared to the Aygo, the seat is a bit less comfortable. This driving position is less convenient, and the suspension, well, I notice the bumps a lot more. But if I wasn't doing an eco test and I was driving it how I wished, I would prefer to drive this car because it is just more exciting, and the interior has a much more premium feel, which feels a little bit special. Coming to the end of the urban drive now, and 40.2 miles per gallon. I'll just pull over because that's where I measured it from last time. Yeah, I can pull over here, so I'll do that. Have to reverse because there is a driveway here. And what's it saying? 40.2. in the 40s. I'm actually quite pleased with that, if I'm honest. 2 litre sports car, 40 to the gallon round town when driving very sensibly. But it's not quite as good as that little Toyota Aygo. Something that definitely feels different between the cars is the temperature. 20 degrees in this car is definitely warmer than 20 degrees in the Aygo. I felt cold pretty much the whole time in that thing at 20, but I didn't want to turn it up because I was trying to keep them both exactly the same. But at the moment I'm quite hot. Right, maps are set for the dual carriageway route, and I'm going to reset the trip computer and get going once this little queue clears, because it wasn't here in the Aygo, so it's a bit unfair. So I'll let them get out of the way, then I'll reset it and be on my way. Right, so looks like I can go soon. So reset, first gear's pedestrian on the right. I know she's going to cross first, but after her, I'm off. Tiny little stretch of 30 here, just to get to the slip road, which is 70. Here's a 70, I'm in 6th gear, 30, accelerating. Don't actually feel like I need to drop gears to accelerate here. There's a lot more torque in this car. I'm already going nearly the speed of the traffic on the main road. Merging between the van and a Mini behind me, 50 miles per hour. It is easier to drive this car in that respect because there's more torque available, so I don't have to use the gears as much, but it's quite fun using gears. Part of why the Aygo is fun, because you do have to drive it fairly hard, even just normally, and that's enjoyable. Nearly 70, there we go, 70 miles an hour. And I'll see how long I can stay at this speed for and see what the economy is like. So far, 33.5 miles per gallon. This is a louder car than the Aygo. It generates a lot more wind noise, but then it is a convertible and soft tops do make more noise at high speeds. It also generates more road noise. What's interesting though is that the noise level from the engine is about the same for both cars, even though the revs are very different. In top gear at 70 miles per hour in this car, it's 2,750 revs. That's in 6th gear, top gear. Top gear in the Aygo, which is 5th gear, is 3,500 revs. So even though the revs are quite different, the noise level is about the same from the engine. In some ways, this car is easier than the Aygo, but in other ways, not so. It's easier because when I put my foot on the gas pedal, it goes, it accelerates. That's useful on these kinds of road. Whereas the Aygo, although it doesn't accelerate as quick as this, it does accelerate enough. There is enough power available there. But what makes it so much easier overall is the adaptive cruise control. On this car, I'm having to turn it on and off and reset it all the time. When I'm in the Aygo, I set it to the speed limit and then it follows the car in front, and when the car moves out of the way, like this elephant race, these 2 lorries at the moment, it accelerates for me. But in this car I have to do it myself and then reapply the cruise. It's not really that much more challenging, to be fair, but on the longer journeys or in traffic, having the adaptive cruise control does make it easier. I've just finished the dual carriageway route, just come off the dual carriageway. I'm going to pull over where I pulled over last time and see what the fuel economy is. Just behind this black car, it's still there. So the exact same route, stopping in the exact same place and starting in the same place as well, and it's got 48 miles to the gallon. I'm not sure what the Aygo got, I can't remember, but I'll put it on screen. I think that is a closer gap than it was on the urban route, but I'll discuss that more later. Route set for the country road route now. I'm going to reset the trip computer and turn around and get going as I did last time. The temperature's been fairly consistent during these tests. It's been between 6 and 9 degrees for both cars, although it was colder for the Aygo than this car. When I started this car, it said 10 degrees, but it soon went down to 9. I think that was because the sun was shining on the front of the car. Be interesting to see how this car does on these roads. I'm thinking it's going to do around about 44 miles per gallon. That's my guess. So it's a 40 zone, which quickly then goes into a 60 zone. Hopefully I get to do 60 as much as possible, although there is some traffic in front of me already. They don't seem to be going too slow though. I need to slow down because this lorry is taking up a little bit of room there, and there was a hole in the road. Going up this long hill now, I'm quite surprised by the economy. It's getting in the 30s. I thought it would be less up this hill and then I'd make the economy back later. And I'm doing a similar speed to what I was in the Aygo, around about 50 miles per hour. I can't go much faster than that because there is traffic in front of me. There's no point driving close behind them. I may as well keep a safe gap, but I'm doing about the same speed as them. Finished the hill now and I'm slowing down to the junction. I'm at 41.8 miles per gallon. It's doing better than I thought. It's probably because when I'm usually on these roads, I do tend to drive a bit quicker if conditions allow. Although quite often I am stuck in traffic, so I can't actually go much quicker than I would be today anyway. Well, I'm impressed with that. Over 40 to the gallon up a long hill. This car definitely handles better on these roads. It feels more planted, and just the driving position makes you feel more secure, being lower down, lower center of gravity. You don't lean as much in the bends. I've got 48 miles to the gallon somehow. I have been going a little bit slower than I was in the Aygo. There was a bit more traffic, but not hugely. It doesn't tell me the average speed, but I'd guess it was around about 3 or 4 miles per hour lower, the average speed over this journey so far. Still, some more driving to do, so I'll leave the result until the end. So, the end of the country road route, and the final result, 48.0 miles per gallon. That is really rather good. I'll wait until I've parked up. I'll make it fair. I parked the last car. I'll see if it changes. It might go down a little bit. Gonna have to park in one movement because that's what I did in the last car as well, but no problem. I can do that. And finish. 47.9, or I lost 0.1 of a mile per gallon. I've put the numbers on screen so that you can compare. I wanted to give you a basic percentage difference between the two cars, but it's not that simple when it comes to numbers. For example, the Aygo Cross in the city, 56.8 miles per gallon. The MX-5, 40.1. I could say the Aygo Cross got 41.6% better fuel economy than the MX-5. But I could also say the MX-5 got 29.4% worse. So depending on which way I compare the numbers, the percentage is different, even though the difference in MPG is the same. So I'm going to put the percentage decrease between the Aygo Cross and the MX-5. You've got all the numbers, you can work out what percentage you like if you wish. But I'm going to use something simple. Money, £45. Well, if it's £1.50 a litre, which roughly about that at the moment, this is the end of February when I'm filming this, 2023, £45 will get you about 30 litres of fuel. In the Aygo Cross, in the city, that equates to 375 miles. But in the MX-5, 264. That's a big difference. At 70 miles per hour, £45 in the Aygo Cross gets you 416 miles. In the MX-5, 317. That is nearly 100 less. In fact, the city was even more than 100 less. And on country roads, in the Aygo Cross, £45 will get you 380 miles. And in the MX-5, it will get you 316. Although I think it would be less than that if I was able to drive at the same speed as I did in the Aygo Cross. I did drive slightly slower in the MX-5 on the country roads because there was a bit more traffic. Not hugely, but it was a bit slower. Does that mean I'm going to ditch the MX-5 and get an Aygo Cross? No, they are different cars that serve a different purpose, but it's interesting to see how much less distance that amount of money at £45 gets me in this car than it does in the Aygo Cross. If my priority was fuel economy, then yes, I would be, but I have this car because it's a sports car, not because it gets great fuel economy, although it does pretty good, which is a bonus. If you found the video interesting, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for car insurance, check out the links to Collingwood and Confused in the description. If you're learning to drive and want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, then Collingwood are there for you because you can do so without affecting the owner's policy. There goes my light. That takes away a big stress from the owner of the car that you're using to learn to drive in. Let's see if I can get this light back. I think I need to replace that sticky thing. Suction mount. There we go. Where was I? I don't know, something about car insurance, Collingwood. If you want to insure yourself on somebody else's car, well, you can do so without affecting the owner's policy, which takes away a stress from the owner of that car. Via the link, there's up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. If you want to insure your own car, I recommend checking out the link to confused.com because you fill out one quote form and get loads of quotes back from many insurers to compare who's cheapest. But you can also change your car on that quote as many times as you like without having to redo the whole quote form, which is a really useful way of comparing how much it costs to insure different cars. Using the links doesn't cost you anything, but it does support the channel, so thank you very much. Subscribe to get my future videos, and until the next one, cheerio.